The gospel this weekend, Jesus poses a question to the apostles. Who do people say that I am? And Peter jumps in and says, you're the Christ, the Son of God. And Jesus at that point, based upon Peter's remarkable insight and gift from the Father, says, Peter, you'll be the rock upon which I'll build this church. That's not the text of this Sunday, but it's the profession of faith. It's this Sunday. And he's the first of a string of a remarkable history of leaders. Some of the popes have been lousy, some have been very poor, some have been great. But the last number of decades, we've had a string of remarkable popes. And it's a little bit about that I'd like to talk, and especially about the last one we have right now, Pope Francis, who I think is just magnificent. I don't want to go through them all, but very quickly, Leo the 13th, the turn of the last century, 1895, was really the Pope who opened up the whole door of social justice and a real care for workers. With his famous encyclical Rerum Novarum, he opened up the church to a whole new way of seeing things. Now I'll skip a bunch of them because there's a lot of popes between there. But John 23rd, St. John 23rd, roly-poly John, opened up the doors of the church and we need some fresh air in here. Things were getting stuffy in the church. It was getting a self-focused kind of church. Then we have Pope Paul VI, who I'd call the captain in a tempest. The 1960s were just wild years, and Pope Paul VI suffered enormously just trying to keep the ship from sinking. And then you have the great John Paul I, who didn't last very long. We call him the Pope with a smile. And then John Paul II, the great, a wonderful missionary. I call him the St. Paul of our times. Great missionary, great writer of letters to the churches, waking them up. Really had an enormous impact upon the world. And then we have Benedict XVI, who I'd call a return of the fathers of the church. Great mind, great thinker, wonderful thinker. And I'd like to focus now upon Francis. Oh, every pope is being criticized. But what we don't realize is that no pope captures all of the papacy. Each one captures one angle of it. John Paul II was the great St. Paul missionary. Benedict XVI was the teacher. And I'd say Pope Francis that we have right now, magnificent guy, is really the good shepherd who's looking and searching for the lost sheep. He is constantly saying, go out to the periphery, find the lost sheep, reaching out his hand to people who normally would be thrown out of the church or marginalized. He's reaching out saying, come on, we're all called to walk on the ways of the Lord. What a magnificent Pope we have. I've been following a little bit of his trip to Papua New Guinea. He was in Indonesia, he's going to Singapore, but Papua New Guinea. I encourage you to watch the YouTube of his talk to the young people. Oh, he really is amazing. For a man who's 88 years old to talk to these young people, and the kids put on these dances for him, dress dances, and he watched and applauded them. And then a couple of the young people made testimonies to him and said, I come from a broken family. My parents, I don't know who they kind of felt abandoned and broken, and the church is my home. And then that one young lady was talking about the abuse going on in Papua New Guinea in the homes and how painful that is. And one of them, I don't remember who said this, but said, my true home is the church. I found my true home in the church. It was beautiful. And Pope Francis was really quite extraordinary. He had a text written out, but he put that aside and started to play around with the kids and tell them stories and kind of get them to respond. And they were yelling and screaming, and it's really fun to watch, Some of the key things he said to them, he says, how many dialects are there in Papua New Guinea? 1 or 2? Well, we all know that there's not dozens, certainly, if not hundreds, certainly dozens and dozens of dialects. So there's dozens. And he says, well, there's really only one true language. It's the language of the heart, the language of service, the language of charity. Oh, he got them. And then he started to say, says, do you young people ever make mistakes? So they all mumble a little bit. He says, come on, do you make mistakes? So they all, I can't hear you. So they yelled out, yes, we make mistakes. He says, well, do adults make mistakes? Do your parents make mistakes? Yes. And then he says, does the Pope make mistakes? And they kind of hesitated for a second and said, yes. He says, yes, of course. It was fun to watch. He says, we all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. The question is we need to get up, brush ourselves off, and keep moving on. And so he says, we all need to learn to correct ourselves. We all make mistakes. Well, we need to correct ourselves and apologize. And that would make our lives so much easier in our culture. Yes, I made a mistake. I apologize. I move on, rather than kind of attack each other. And then he says, if one of your friends, and he's referring probably to the problems with drugs, because there's a lot of that in Papua New Guinea, drugs and abuse and alcohol and that kind of thing. If one of your friends falls and makes a mistake, and just has found himself on the ground, what do? Kick him? Punch him? Or do you extend a hand, pick him up, and say, come on, let's get back up? And he had them all leaning over and picking somebody up and picking somebody up. What a remarkable Pope. What a man who's really a man of the people. Oh, he's been controversial because people feel that he's a good shepherd that shouldn't be reaching out to the lost sheep, but he is. That's what he is. And it doesn't always look very good because some people may be critical of the way that he's extending a hand to individuals that others think we shouldn't be reaching out to. But that's what Jesus did. That's what Jesus did. So we really have a remarkable Pope. He says, he made a comment at some point. He says, we're not Superman. We're not Spider-Man. And they're all looking at him, and he says, that's right. We're all weak, fragile human beings that make mistakes and need each other. So we have been blessed. We are blessed. We've had a whole string of magnificent popes in the last number of years. The church is in good shape. It's not dependent only upon the popes. It's a challenging time for sure. The culture is not making our lives easy at all. We know that. But when you have wonderful leadership at the helm like that, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. And when John Paul II died, people said, oh, we'll never have a pope like him. Well. Along came Benedict XVI with a very different but a magnificent pope. And then now we have Francis, and we say, my goodness, how much better could it get with shepherds like this? And so the Holy Spirit has truly been guiding his church since the time of Peter, the first pope, who's been kind of at the helm of the church. So let us be filled with hope. The scriptures say, Peter says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And the psalm of this Sunday says, I love you, Lord. I love you, Lord, my strength, my rock. That's the prayer of faith of a Christian. And so let's not be discouraged. It's not always easy. These are challenging times. But let's pick up our courage, If we fall, and get back up and keep moving, as Pope Francis says. So we have been blessed with a string of magnificent popes and leaders and shepherds. The Lord has not abandoned his church. He's walking with us. So let us walk with courage. So have a great weekend, a great week, everybody. And know that the amazing love of the Lord for you is always there. God bless you.